Green Room. I'm your host, David Edwards. And Beyond the Green Room is where we discuss all things theater, your weekly brunch time chat. And today we have what you might call a theme show, which is why I'm wearing my sequin coat today. We're going to take a visit to the land of the Mylar Curtain, the legendary franchise, you might call it, theater franchise Forbidden Broadway. I have three guests on my show today who have quite a reputation and quite a long time association with the show. And they've got a lot of stories to tell us. And they're three wonderfully talented people who have careers outside of Forbidden Broadway. And we're going to find out all about that as well. So let me bring them on. This is also a first for Beyond the Green Room. This first guest of mine is a young lady that I did not meet before today. So we're going to get to know each other right along with you guys. Please welcome a Drama Desk nominee for Forbidden Broadway and a young lady who I've been listening to all week on recordings to get familiar with her terrific talent. She recently starred as Fanny Bryce in Funny Girl in Paris. Please welcome Christina Bianco.
Hello.
Hello. See, I had to put the jacket on because of
I'm really glad you did. I'm very subtle over here in downtown Greenwich Village, just very subtle.
You look gorgeous, and you're very close. I'm in Harlem, so we're only about 100 blocks away. So.
Not so bad, but we share the love of the glitter. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you could join us. So let me bring on the two other folks. This next gentleman is somebody that I've had the pleasure of working with, and I can think of no greater fan of the theater and a collector of memorabilia. He's been on Broadway in shows like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. In fact, I believe many of you people may have seen him as Willy Wonka. And he's been in, of course, Jersey Boys and Forbidden Broadway, and a few other shows, one of which we might get to talk about, a flop that we were in together, Off-Broadway. Please welcome the wonderful Jared Bradshaw.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Jared.
Hi, Jared.
Hey, Christina.
Hi, Jared.
So good to see you. And David, you know I got my sequence ready too.
Yes, I know. Well,
yes.
Well, wait till you see the background Bill has picked out for us.
Oh, I can't wait.
Right now. Our third guest is the gentleman that it was very instrumental in putting the ingredients for today's show together. And he's an old friend of mine, a very talented man who's been involved with Forbidden Broadway almost more than anybody I can imagine.
True.
But he's done a lot of regional theater and off-Broadway, and I've had the pleasure of directing him. And his name is William Selby. Welcome, Bill.
Hello.
Hey.
My delightful background.
Yes, well, looking very handsome against that black background.
That looks like Hal Prince's set for Evita and Kiss the Spider Woman.
Before we went on camera, David called me the Prince of Darkness.
It is.
Well, it's, you know, you pop it, and it's very slimming, everything else, you know. Not that you needed it, but
I think he knew he needed to balance out.
These really slim me too.
Yeah.
Well,
you want black? I'll bring black, Jared. I'll bring.
See, this is a group that has prepared like no other group that I've entertained so far. So we're going to get right to it because I have a feeling that nobody's going to be at a loss for words today. But I want to play a little bit of the game that I always play so that our audience gets to know how we know each other. And I'll ask you, Bill, first, because you were the last to join us, and I think the answer is pretty obvious. How do we first know each other?
Well, David, I actually saw you first in a show at the Triad called Bittersweet. And I went to that because Suzanne Blakesley was in it. Mm-hmm. And I always remember when I heard your voice, and I said, now that's a very well-trained voice. That's what I thought when I heard you. So I saw you, but of course we must have met at one of Dulcie Eisen's parties because we share the same agent.
Yes, yes. And actually, I have a totally different memory. I'm sure I was there on that stage doing Bittersweet at the Triad, which is where Forbidden Broadway played.
When it was Paulson's, that's where it began.
Yes, yes, it was still called Paulson's when I was there with Bittersweet. And we ran almost a year there, but we could not compete with the record that Forbidden Broadway did. But anyway, I think we met through friends, but I remember also seeing you on stage for the first time in the Detroit area when I was doing a production of Man of La Mancha, and you sang that very song that we just heard you do right now. And of course, I was with the Man of La Mancha cast, and we were on the floor. We were laughing, and we were wondering whether you guys had chosen it because you knew we were there in our own egotistical way. Of course, that wasn't true. It was part of the regular lineup for Forbidden Broadway. But
well, you're probably right. That was probably the first time. Yeah.
Well, that's the time I saw you. But I think when you came out and met us all, I reminded you that we had known each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, we saw each other at many auditions.
Yes. Yes.
Many conversations.
Yes, there's a lot to be mined there. And all right, Christina has disappeared, and I know she doesn't have an answer to this question, except we met 10 minutes ago. But
my dog got very, very invested in what we were doing, so I had to put him away.
Well,
sorry to interrupt.
My cat was talking incessantly about 10 minutes ago, so he may appear too. I'm waiting. You know, they'll
waited just for when we started.
Well, he saw a picture of Bill in Kat's dress, so he thought maybe
I'll do it. Anyway, sorry to interrupt, but
all right. Jared, how do you remember we met? I think it'll be an easy answer.
Well, darling, I was your understudy. Actually, I was David's understudy in this little wonderful show that didn't run very long, starring the amazing Forbidden Broadway alum, Jen Samard. She was absolutely fantastic in it.
Well, say the title, Jared.
The title was called Dr. Sex, and it was a big hit in Chicago. It was about Alfred Kinsey and the Kinsey Report. And then that dark film Kinsey came out with Liam Neeson, and it was a great film, but it was very dark. Our show was very light and fun and only like glimpses of butt cheeks. There was no nudity, obviously. And the film had already come out of Kinsey, and people were like, they're making light of this. This is very important and very serious. And there was no hope for it. But David, you were the teacher and the professor. You were sort of evil or bad or something.
I played all the bad guys,
and I got to understudy you and Dr. Sex, and I got to go on the last.
Yes, in fact, I will tell all of our audience that Jared did a very brave thing. We were closing
that day,
absolutely at the final performance, and most of the house was papered. So the producers really weren't concerned about giving refunds if we decided not to do it. And Jared had very little rehearsal because we knew we were on our last legs.
So we had never run the show or anything.
No, it was a monster role. And I remember thinking they had approached me at one time with understudying that role. And I thought, no way. And I had no idea that you were understudying both of us.
Well, I never looked at your lines. They were like, just look at doctor stuff first. And then one weekend, we had one understudy rehearsal, and they're like, we're not going to have one next week because we're closing. So don't even worry about it. But I still practice my lines on the train all the way to Washington.
You were amazing. You literally stepped in so bravely and gave a very individualistic performance. And all of us stood in the wings when we weren't on stage, just gasping at how wonderful you were.
I had some good friends that came that day and sat in the front row. My wife was watching me going, this is terrifying.
Yeah.
It was cool.
And you know, it's amazing in this day of social media, some people were lauding it and some people saying, well, how come he didn't know the show? And I thought, I got on there and I was saying, how dare you? This man did the bravest thing I have ever seen.
Well, what was cool was that the producers were like, we know that we canceled understudy rehearsal and you don't have to do the show. And I was like, well, let's just go for it. And I remember it was about recording gall wasps and all this scientific stuff. And I was worried about all those numbers. And they said, just hold the notebook for those things. And I was like, good. And Jen Samard, we had to like kiss and make out and be under the covers, and I, adored her and looked up to her. And I was like, because I had seen her in Forbidden Broadway, and I was like, Jen, what about all these, like, should we practice the bed thing or the kiss thing? She was like, honey, you have bigger things to worry about. Don't worry, I'll take care of those scenes. You just worry about everything else. So it was amazing. And
may I say, I saw Dr. Sex. I went to it because I went to see Jen Smart and Ron Bomer, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when I first saw Jared.
Man, Jen's absolutely amazing. One of those people like Christina that you're just like, can just pull anything out, and you're just like, where does this voice end? It doesn't end, so
Jen Samard is one of the reasons I was determined. I was like, if there's ever, like, I have to go see her in everything, like everything she's ever done, I've seen her in, strangely enough, except for Dr. Sex, because I've always been such a super fan of her. She's always been this big inspiration to me. Great and but more on her later. But yeah, incredible. Small world.
Yeah, she was, I did a show with her before that called Pets, that the New York Daily News called a dog of a musical.
Too easy.
But walked right into that one.
Yeah, so we clung very closely together during that one as well. And the show that Jared is talking about, during a rather long preview period, we replaced a director, a set designer, a sound designer, and a costume designer. And by the time we opened, we had no director credited on the playbook. So it was somewhat of.
I love working with Pam Hunt from New York, and all the actors that we got a new director who had done like one play on Broadway, and not a farce of a musical. And then it just was kind of like, who's leading the ship? And David and I we all knew more about the musical than the director, who was only there for a week or two. And, he's a talented guy, but to let go of the director and then bring somebody in for the last, it just made no sense.
No, there was Hurricane Katrina was happening around the same time we were previewing. So we didn't seem like the biggest disaster in the country.
But Dr. Ruth came. Remember when Dr. Ruth came?
Yes, and she said, it's very clean. There's only 2 bare buttocks in the whole show. She also said that because we had an opening night party at Sardi's, and Dr. Ruth had her picture lowered on one of the walls so that she could see it, because she's very tiny. I remember
her pain.
Yeah. Are you tiny? I can't tell from here. You look 10 feet
that's
tall.
Lovely. No, I'd like to say I'm part of the 411 club. I'm 4'11". There's some greats that are 4'11". So we're few and far between, but I've got the same club as Judy Garland, Kristen Chenoweth, Elaine Page, Elena Raja. I'll take it.
That's a pretty good, darn good roster to be a part of. So
just climbing my way up.
Well, I want to ask you about a lot of things, especially the fact that you've been dubbed the woman of 1,000 voices. And we might get to 2 or 3 today, but let's get to Forbidden Broadway. Bill, you've directed maybe 20 incarnations?
19 productions, yeah.
19 productions.
And the 20th, David, was supposed to happen June. We were starting rehearsals, canceled because of COVID. And then it was pushed off to September, and now we pushed it off to March of next year. So we hope that happens.
Yeah. Well,
North Coast Rep, great people out there. Great.
I think that what we're looking at right now, I mean, I know it's a tiny, tiny trickle, but I see that we've gone to a phase where people at these regional theaters are just so determined to move on that they are starting online things. They're I think, the big theaters, the Broadway theaters certainly are going to be the last to come back, just because they can't break even at 25% capacity and deliver the product that people expect at Broadway with that. But that may be a good thing. We may find that Broadway is a little bit on the scale of Forbidden Broadway going forward. And by that, I mean the essence of theater, and not to compete with the other media. I I don't know. I mean, you've all been involved with a lot more theater projects than Forbidden Broadway, but I do want to get to some of these fabulous stories that Bill sent me a bunch of kind of, maybe conversation starters, you might call them.
I was just trying to help, David. I wasn't trying to take over.
No, and I'm intrigued because he sent me a list, and they're just sort of names that are a hook towards me wanting to know more. So of course I can't. You mentioned Streisand and Barbara Walsh. Barbara was that I should tell you, and she's had an amazing career, is having an amazing career. But she was the hat check girl at Paulson's when we were doing Bittersweet.
Wow.
And yet years later, I did a show with her called The Witch of Wall Street, and we had a big kissing scene. And she reminded me of that. I did not know that. I felt very, very old and very worn out and thinking, oh, he must have been standing back there at the hat check room judging me every night, but she was lovely to work with.
David, when I first came to New York in 1987, soon after that, I covered the men for the last part of the Paulson's run before it stopped. And Barbara Walsh was in the show. And I brought that up because Barbara was one of the few actors in the show, in my experience, that I watched do a number and fantasy and reality crossed. And I swear to you, there were moments when I thought I was watching Barbra Streisand and listening to her. Yeah. It was eerie. I don't know if it had to do with the lighting. I also believed that she had a nose piece put on and she didn't. And it was just one of those numbers where I really had to shake my head and go, my God, there were these moments, these tones where you'd think it's her. And it's an incredible feeling when that happens, let me tell you.
Well, I do believe, because I'm not good at imitations the way you guys, well, I do one or two sometimes when I've had a couple of martinis and it flows. But I really do think that you, in order to do someone well, you have to have a respect for them and love them. You can't be making fun of.
Which is what Gerard does with Forbidden Broadway.
Yeah.
Those people that say he's mean-spirited. No. He comes from a place of love. That's the only way you can really do it successfully, I think, parodying shows.
Even if the lyrics, forgive me for interrupting, even if some of the lyrics are a little bit biting and again, you have to make people laugh as well. So I always say that there is such a balance of, even if some lyrics were biting, there were other lyrics that really elevated and showcased what everyone, including Gerard and the performers, loved about that person. And if you're doing it from a place of love and respect, then the audience can accept all of it. And back to Barbara Walsh, my favorite, just because I think I was the perfect age when it came out. My favorite Forbidden Broadway album was always Forbidden Broadway Volume 3. And that's where Barbara Walsh sings, "There's a show for me." And I was like, this woman sounds just like Barbra Streisand. Like it's probably the Barbra Streisand impression that I tried to impersonate is Barbara Walsh doing Barbra Streisand.
Well, I remember one of the very early incarnations. There was a show on the radio called Anything Goes that was a 4-hour celebration of musical theater on Sunday afternoon. And it was run by a man by the name of Paul Lazarus, who was a theater director, who I believe has now relocated to LA. But he would get a lot of musical theater people on, and live they would perform some of the songs. And this is when Forbidden Broadway was just happening. And there was no cast album at this point. I remember they were still doing the parody of Evita called "Don't Cry for Me, Barbra Streisand," and that's the one. I think I have a tape of it somewhere that and also that when Hal Prince and Stephen Sondheim were talking about doing Sunset Boulevard for Angela Lansbury. That's how long ago my memories were. Wow. I could never get my foot in the door because I can't do imitations like you guys do. So
one of my favorite memories of Forbidden Broadway was coming to one matinee as a fan. So I was probably 23 or something. The show was down at the Douglas Fairbanks Theater, right? And Michael West was in it. Donna English. It was the crew that was doing Spoof Odyssey like a year or two in.
Yep.
And Carol Channing was there. I just happened to be there the matinee that Carol Channing and her partner or friend or whatever came with. And they brought her up. And of course, one of my favorite, Gerard wrote that, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
You have that doll.
It's so good. Me and Michael West have this doll. We just have it.
And Gerard has it.
I keep it in the closet. I'm the kind of person, obviously, that needs a Carol Channing doll just to pop out in the time. Anyway, Carol Channing was there, and the whole cast put on the red thing. And Carol Channing, it is. The lyric is, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yeah.
And, I didn't even know Michael West then, but I was like, it was amazing to see Michael do Carol. And it was so serious. And that's what makes it good.
And Carol recorded that song for one of the albums.
Of course, I know.
One of Bravo's biggest fans.
So little fan me. I waited in the lobby that afternoon for probably 45 minutes. After she was done, she was wearing like a white furry kind of coat. And I waited for her to come out. And John Friedson didn't know me. He was like walking her out. I was like, hi, can I get a picture with you, Miss Channing? And I'm so glad I have that. It was one of my favorite memories. I wasn't even in the show yet.
And then cut to you're in the show. I love it. I don't have a story like that meeting Carol Channing, but so many times when I was waiting at stage doors to, say hi to the cast, and then I ended up being in it one day. It blew my mind.
That's the thing about kudos to Bill Selby, because Bill was always there at the auditions, always whispering into Gerard's ear, going, see if they can do this, see if they can, and that he found somebody like me that was like the show's biggest fan. I had worked with Felicia Finley, and that's how I knew Bill. And of course, I was a fan of Bill.
We met in a van. That's how we met.
Going down to Atlantic City, right?
What?
With his girlfriend, Lindsay, who we ultimately married.
That's right.
So we met in Felicia Finley driving to Atlantic City, where she was starring in this huge show, and she was phenomenal.
Yeah, and of course, Felicia was in Forbidden Broadway, and then went to Broadway and came back. Anyway, so that's how I met Bill. But Bill was able to see me come in and be the hugest fan of the show and go, he can totally do this. And then Christina walks in and can do any voice and anything. And
but not when I walked in the door, though. So I'm glad that Bill gave me a chance. I was terrified.
I remember when we started performances of that summer version with our buddy Crosby and James. And And we had so much fun. And Christina was like, I don't know. Christina was like, I don't know if I'm going to get to do the next edition. And I was like, I think you're going to get to do the next edition, because Christina just pulled all of these notes and voices and everything out. And I was a fan of Christina. We got to do Some Endangered Species.
I know.
Doing that stuff and the Xanadu, getting to work with her.
Both of your auditions, guys, were very, very well prepared. They had lists of people that they were going to do impressions of. I remember both your auditions, and they were great. I wore a lot of different hats, and I did casting. And I want to throw in, to tie in something Jared said, that I remember the pile of resumes I was looking at, and I stopped at Jared's picture because he had attached that photo of him with Carol Channing. And so when I met him in the van going to see Felicia, I said, you're the guy that had the picture with Carol Channing.
Raspberries.
So it all came together. And then he gave a fabulous audition, so it all worked.
I love it. I love it. You remember that. I don't remember there, but I wouldn't put it past me to do that.
Yeah. And I think there, and forgive me if I'm putting words in your mouth here, Bill, but I would think that it's a very unique show with Forbidden Broadway, where when someone, say, tapes a picture of themselves with a celebrity to the resume, you're like, oh, that's great, they're a fan of the show, as opposed to if you're auditioning for Wicked and you sent a picture of yourself with Idina Menzel, they'd be like, this person's a crazy person and we need to get them out of here. But with Forbidden Broadway, it's there's an understanding. If you appreciate it, you've got to be good people,
I mean, it worked in that I remembered it. You know what I mean? I said, you're that guy. It's something that stood out. So I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, that's why, I don't know you well enough yet, Christina, but I know that Jared is the biggest Broadway fan there is. He was always posting pictures of the marquees of new Broadway shows opening every year. And to have someone who has a successful career who is in it and still be that starstruck, I think is very heartwarming. And it's something that it's the essence of Forbidden Broadway too. It's that you can be a huge fan and have a high regard for the genre, and yet still have the confidence to send it up and just have fun with it like that.
You won't remember this, David, but I mean, you remember the Rothschilds poster. David was a child in a Broadway musical called The Rothschilds, written by Harnick and Bach, who wrote Fiddler, etc. And I had this velvet poster, and I was like, oh my gosh, you were in it when we did Dr. Sex, so I gave it to him. But I had seen David in The Fantastics off-Broadway. And when I did Dr. Sex with him, I was a fan of his, and I had him sign my Fantastics DVD that he's on. I'm a fan of everybody because there's no people like show people, and to do Forbidden Broadway, and you've really got to have a special set of be able to put up with a lot of lyrics and songs. So you have to be able to sing every note in your range 8 times a week, and it's just constantly changing. So.
And appear in almost any garb, whether it's silly or I don't know. This is a question that I thought of a long time ago. Actually, Tony posed it to me. He said, and I've never had the right panel yet to ask this, but have you ever done anything on stage that you were thinking, oh, I hope my parents don't see me do this? Would you be embarrassed at that?
You mean this? You mean this one?
Not for me. No.
Well, that's good, I guess. That either means that your parents are very open-minded, or that you are very proud of what you do, which of course you all are, and very confident, and also knowing that it is never mean-spirited or never crossing the line. When we did Dr. Sex, there was an awful lot of. I know there was no full frontal, but there was an awful lot of. There was one scene where we were in little shorty bathrobes that they spent entirely too much money on having constructed. They could have bought them over at Kmart and cut them down. But we finished the number while poor Jennifer Simard was on a bed singing a diva number. And at the end, we all turned upstage and opened our bathrobes at her. And to the audience, it looked like we were naked. Of course, they could all see our body mics hanging down from our butts if you sat in the front row. But out of boredom, because we ran so long and we were getting bored, we put little things on our chests so that Jen could see them, and only Jen could see them as we finished the number to try to break her up. But she was a pro. She never
didn't run long enough to break her up. So.
Well, I can imagine that there must have been instances with you guys during Forbidden Broadway where you would break up all the time.
Well, my God, yes.
Gerard, I was lucky to be in the show. Christina, I don't know if you were there or not. I know, Bill, you were there. The week that we put Gerard in the show, it was like the 20th or 25th anniversary or something. And the press were like, what if Gerard goes back in the show for a month or something? And so, of course, I'm the biggest fan of Gerard. He's amazing. And so he wrote a number where he was Jean Valjean from Les Miserables.
I heard about this. I didn't see it.
And Val Fagan came out as Merman. And we sang, "Do You Hear the People Sing?" And Gerard, of course, was always writing and fixing the lyrics and making them funnier. And I invited my good friend Jim Phillips, because he loved Forbidden Broadway, and I was like, you have to come tonight because there's no way this is staying in. None of us know the lyrics. And we all went up on stage with Gerard, and we're like, "Do you hear the people sing lyrics and again? You know that we will not." And none of us did, not even Gerard. Because we had just changed it and rehearsed it all
too many times. Yeah, changed it too many times.
So crazy. And Gerard was the Frankenstein monster in the show. Wait, where is it? Frankenstein monster in the show for a few, and painted himself green.
I remember that.
And we thought he was there for because I was on those shoes, those stilts, and I was like, he's gonna break his ankle because I had practiced on him, and I'm like, he cannot do that. So that's one of my craziest bloopers where I was almost like, I wish we didn't have to do the show tonight. We're not ready. But we did anyway. That's what previews are for.
There's something about that song. One time we did a benefit Kevin B. McGlynn and Christine Zabornik were in it. So there I am doing at the same moment. There were a lot of times when he would change the lyrics to "Do you hear the people sing?" For whatever reason, I stood there and I said, "Do you hear the people sing?" And there was blank page in front of me. And I just went, and then I stopped. And all I could think of was Jim Carrey in the movie The Mask, which was playing. And I said, "Somebody help me." And Zabornik is crawling on stage as the whatever part. And she reaches toward Kevin B. McGlynn and says, "Help him, for God's sake." That was one of our craziest moments.
You can get away with a lot when you forget stuff in Forbidden Broadway. Because
you have the skill that you guys have, being able to think on your feet and go with it. And,
well,
the actor. You know?
No, I had. This is not funny, actually, because I was terrified. And Bill, I don't know if you remember this, but I had been doing the show for a couple months, and we were into the run, and I had laughed at something Michael West did. And before that, I was like, "Oh, I don't really break. I'm really tough. I'm really, like I learned in school to stay focused." And Michael West cracked me, and as we say now, and I never recovered. Like from then on, I'm pathetic. I break so easily and I have to try to keep it together. So breaking, I could kind of handle, but I forgot lyrics that I'd been singing for months and months. And for some reason, the parody lyrics went out of my head. And out of nowhere, I could only remember the original lyrics. And it was during the South Pacific segment. But you had run Jersey Boys at the time. It was with James Donegan. And I just sang a line. I was like, "When my hair is a bright canary yellow." I'm sorry. I think I forgot where I was. Can we do that again? And I said that like without knowing what the rest of it was. And I was like, "What am I supposed to say?" And all I remember is James being like, "Something about Christine Ebersole, I think. I can read your mind." But I will tell you, for about a week, I second guessed every single thing I did. And I even said, "You got to give me like 3 days off the show." And I had to like hit a reset button, like stop, listen to other stuff, listen to jazz. Like I don't know what happened. I'd never had a glitch like that before. And I was again, I've shifted gears from the conversation now that you started, but I never forget that I had been taking all these new lines. Give me a new line in 5 minutes. I'll perform it on stage. Like I thought I could handle it, but I just cracked one day. So I think all that lyric changing and pressure and new numbers, it hit me, and I couldn't even remember the lyrics to all. I was trying to sing all that chat, and I was singing all that jazz. I was like, "The real lyrics, they're coming," and I couldn't think of any of the parody lyrics for a little while.
Well, once it gets in your head, then you get spooked.
Well, cut to now, I can't sing any of the real lyrics to anything. All I do is Forbidden Broadway, so it just switches. I mean, I had to sing "Let It." Somebody had me recently sing the song "Let It Go." So I do two things. I have never sung that song in my own voice since almost ever. I always sing it with impressions, or I sing it with parody lyrics. So I was like, "You want me to sing as me?" And I was like, "This Englishman, and let it blow go, let it blow go." I couldn't do it. I just could not.
I've always thought that song should be a good theme song for a laxative commercial. But then, no, I had a similar experience when I went. Jared reminded me of the Fantastics. I went in on 3 days of rehearsal when I replaced there. And the man I replaced had already gone off to another job, and I went out on the matinee. And I got through the whole darn thing, and I got to Round and Round, and I thought, oh, this is going well. And
famous last words.
I was letter perfect, and then I got there. I sang the lyric. I've been to Benghazi. It's terribly gay. And then I couldn't think of anything else. I said, "It's gay. It's gay. It's gay. It's gay." I sang that for the rest of the song.
The producers
and the Louisa came off stage and she says, "I think we've established it's very gay in Benghazi," and that never happened again. But a year later, I was back in the show and I told this story backstage, and everybody thought it was very amusing and very charming. And I got on stage and the same thing happened. And the Louisa said, "You did that on purpose." And I said, no, it just got in my head, and I couldn't imagine what the lyrics were. Couldn't imagine.
Oh, wow.
David, I have a quick story from Boston. Denise Guancy God bless her, she's passed away now. She was doing the Les Mis segment, and she had a line that went, rich folks pay $20 a shirt that has a starving pauper on it. Okay? And I watched her one night when she said, rich fucks pay $20 a shirt. Just came out of her mouth. That was one of my favorites.
Oh,
Wow.
man.
I have something really fun I want to show right here. This is Jim Griffith was the stage manager in my whole run of the show. And this is what you would get every time the show order changed. This is an order from January 17th of probably 2006 or 2007. And this is the names of the numbers. And if an understudy was on and say Bill did like A Great Impossible Dream and I didn't do that number, they could put in a number that Bill did well. Or if Donna English came in for a week, they would put in
Julie Andrews. Yeah.
Andrews, and they would move everything around. But this is a fantastic thing that only backstage people at Forbidden Broadway would see. It's the show order. And Gerard would always go, well, we have a group number, so now we have to have a solo number. And the person in this one needs to leave early to get dressed for this. And the costume needs to be underdressed for this one. So, like, that's just something I found. I keep everything. And that's an amazing.
You kept that.
Yoklahoma and Julie Andrews, Mamma Mia, Chitty.
I always had to circle the numbers I was in just so I could follow it because, you know, the other names would distract me. So I was
all the time.
how much time I had off and that kind of thing.
I remember when I was really lucky, but my time. I did want to say something, but two parts to the story. First of all, thinking of things you saved, I have saved. It's not. I looked for it today, but it's in a storage space. I have saved the. You might remember this, Jared. The way that Gerard told us all that he was going to be closing the show.
Yeah. Right.
I have that saved. Oh. We were at a rehearsal one day, David. You know, we rehearsed even when the show was open all the time because there were always lyrics and songs and numbers changing. And Gerard, everybody has a Gerard impression, and this is mine. Oh, okay. So, I have something new, a new finale, and I think let me hear it. So he gave us this paper, and we're all like, well, da 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 da. It's been lots of fun, but we end our run on January 15th.
That's how it happened.
That's how Gerard told us we were closing in a lyric that we were rehearsing to sing in the show.
And also, yeah, because that's Gerard. He thought it'd be like funny. And meanwhile, they've been in the show like longer than I have. And I thought when I got the job, I was like, I can have this job for life. I love Forbidden Broadway. I was literally in it like 3 months. And he's like, yeah, but I think I'm done writing. So so that's what we told. I have that piece of paper saved, but somebody else wouldn't be funny. But
and of course, Gerard will never be done writing. We all know
never. And that's why after that he extended the show, of course, because we were a huge hit, so it got extended anyway. So we did not close in January.
So many old lyrics, like the what was the Pajama Game, Harry Connick Jr. number? All these things that were like in the show for a couple weeks and then out. And the Sweeney Todd one is so funny, like just like.
I have all my lyric sheet from all the way back to 1985 when I started.
Oh
so numbers that never happened, numbers that were one day and they were cut. It's really he's amazing.
Talking about being a fan of Gerard, right after I joined the show went on a 3-month hiatus to San Diego, and we did the show at the little, what is it called? What's that theater called, Bill? The Old Town Theater, and it was like, you know, Mexican restaurants and the little theater we did the show in. And we added in a bunch of older classic Forbidden Broadway numbers. But I just remember going out to Mexican with Gerard and the cast, and I was like, I can't believe that I flew on a plane with Gerard and we're having dinner, right? And during that dinner, I planted in his head, I was like, Gerard, all these cut scenes, all these cut numbers I've heard about, you have to record them. You have to make them bonus tracks or make a whole like 3 CDs.
You did it.
You got to start getting them out there, and he did. And as a fan of the show, even after I left and wasn't on the CD, like I was like, yes, these are recorded forever because only Bill Selby would have a copy of all of these. Like,
I love you and I hate you for that because I love you for that because that's all I ever wanted. Like he's got so much. And again, you know me, I like to talk, so I'll make this short. And this is said not fishing for compliments. This is said with complete love. I am miserable at my performance on that whole album because I didn't know what I was doing yet. I hardly knew those impressions. No, just don't. For me, I was like in the room, and it was always like one take. And I was like, what do you one take? I don't like even like the way I did that. I was pitchy. No, we're going to keep it organic. I was like, but I grew up with these. These are sacred. And now this is what they're going to hear. I didn't even sing the right interval. And I know the real song, what is it? Tell Me on a Sunday. And I sang the wrong interval. Like I was thinking about the notes and the lyrics and the scanning, let alone an impression that I had only done for a couple of 2 months. But that's the thing, as crazy as it is. And as much as I'm like, oh, I don't like what I did. That number is what people talk to me about now in Australia and Geneva. They're like, oh, that Bernadette Peters, See Me on a Monday. And I never even performed it in the show. I just did it. And literally, Bill Selby handed me lyrics, I think the day before.
David, one of the pictures I sent you was Christina in the recording studio recording. So
yes, Bill sent me. I got the inside scoop on all of you because
David, send me all those photos.
Well,
I'll send
that can be arranged. Of course, Bill, I'm sure. Yeah, Bill knows where all the bodies are buried. And Jared has every bit of memorabilia, every poster, everything. And I guess we have to have Christina record all her stories, and then we can open the Forbidden Broadway Museum.
Right.
Because there was a coffee table book not long ago, right?
I have it right here.
Do you want to see? We all have our copy. Mine's right in front of me.
Here's mine because it's autographed by all the greats. Bill and Christina have signed it. Ken Fallon and Gerard. Look at that. I love it. Michael West. And it's so good.
That's wonderful.
It's a great book.
I auditioned for it in Philadelphia. It was brand new.
You did?
I was a kid. It was ridiculous. I was already a fan because it went to New York, and there was the first production outside of New York.
Right.
And I literally drove all the way to Philadelphia. Wow. And I don't think I did badly, but Gerard literally said to me, he said, are you sure? We don't have housing here. You would have to drive every day from Philadelphia. And I was that hungry to do something like this. So, you guys have lived the life. And I mean, one of the things I saw in those pictures that you sent was, I can guess maybe what was going on, but I'd like Bill to tell us about this sound.
I have a story on it. Which one are you going to show?
Well, I don't know if we have the picture lined up. It may be in one of the clips later on.
Okay.
But you did a photo shoot where you looked like the trapped children on the mountains in.
Okay, that was not these two, but it was me, Steve Essner, who is now passed, Christine Petty, and Laurie Hamill. We were doing the show in Denver, and one day I was staring at the costumes. And I looked out the window and I looked at the beautiful mountains of Denver. And I said, guys, it was my idea. I said, guys, we have to take those costumes, get in the van, and go way up there and take pictures.
I'm so glad you did.
Christine Petty kept saying, go further, go further. There's going to be a better view. There's going to be a better view. We did this. We ran outside. It was cold. And the Lord slowed down and stared at us. And some people came up to us and said, we thought you were making a movie. But we were doing all these, and the pictures are priceless. I love that we did. And also, we changed into those costumes in the van, all of us getting it. So that was fun, too. Oh, my God.
Well, there was no snow, but there looked like there could have been some, I don't know, some cactus or maybe or something like that. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, my God.
It was a riot. But one thing when we talk about, David, if I could say, about the pressures of all the things you have to be able to do for this show, and sometimes learning a number the day before doing it on stage, it puts you in the trenches. And any theater group that's in the trenches together bonds really closely. And I think you guys would agree with me. Maybe similar to other shows, but very much so for Forbidden Broadway, you become a family and you become very close. And I love these guys. Just seeing your faces is so great. And I would say that about anybody else who appeared on this screen right now. It's a love fest. Jared would hold parties sometimes with some of the Forbidden Broadway actors.
Yeah.
And just have that right. I think you agree with me, guys, that immediate comfort. It's like, we're with family, and it's a very special thing to have been involved in the show.
Especially when we're at a party or not at Forbidden Broadway, it's so great to see each other when there's no pressure to deliver whatever. Or
it's stressful, yeah.
Hal Prince is coming tonight. We got to work on this or whatever, And it is, and the Forbidden Broadway family it's a large, small family, and the people I never got to do the show with Christine Petty, but we are connected because we've both done Forbidden Broadway. We both, survived, and I mean that in the best way.
Right.
And thanks to Gerard and John Friedson and Phil George and everybody that we got to do it, because there's nothing like Forbidden Broadway. And I did the show for 3 years, and I wanted to do it forever, but I got offered Jersey Boys in Chicago, and I know Gerard was not happy that I left, but it had been 3 years, and I was like, I have to do this. And we were about to record cast recording, and I sort of had to burn that to the ground.
And you did Jersey Boys for how long?
8 years.
So, I mean, that's quite a...
Oh, yeah, and I played every role in Jersey Boys with Frankie Valli. So it was the right decision, but it was so hard because he knew, and John Friedson knew I loved the show more than anything. And John was like, but can you just wait a month? And I was like, I can't.
Don't wait a month.
Yeah. You need to understudy 6 people. And the only reason I could do that is because I did Forbidden Broadway for 3 years. I had the confidence to, sure, go on. I got there in Chicago, and I went on for 3 different roles in 3 different days in a row.
And that's the thing. People always say, because, in the business, you meet people that know other people, and eventually everyone that's ever done Jersey Boys has met Jared Bradshaw. And they're all like, I don't know anybody that's so quick and so good. And I'm just nodding my head like, well, one, Jared is exceptional, and he can do that better than most people. But the thing is, that's Forbidden Broadway. When you have it takes the fear out of you. I mean, exactly. If someone said you're going to cover 5 people, you got 3 days to learn it, I'd be like, okay. It can't be as hard as learning a number and going on immediately. So it's a training that's unmatched.
And one of my favorite moments, I understudied 4 people in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And my first time on, I get a text from Christina, and she's like, are you on as Wonka tonight? I was like, yes, it's my first night. And she's like, me and Christine Petty are coming. And I was like, what? And of course, I had never finished rehearsing. I'd never sung through the score with the conductor or the music director. I'd never finished rehearsing the show. And of course they came, and I'm doing all these impressions in the show, and they're like the queens of impressions, So, but set me able to do that. And so many people in the city saw me do that, including the
Well, you did that spot on the Tony Awards too, where you were.
But Forbidden Broadway is the perfect training ground to be prepared to do anything in the Broadway.
David, I always say about Forbidden Broadway that you do just about everything. So when somebody else asks you at an audition, you can stop them right there. Yes.
Yeah. Unless it's roller skate. My Xanadu number proved that I couldn't do that. But other than that, yes.
The quality that I always look for in casting is the person that is willing to jump in. Could you try this? Absolutely, sure. But then you'll see those actors that go, I love the people that go, impressions? You want me to do impression? And then you go, do you know what you're auditioning for?
I think, and I'm not going to babble too much, so please cut me off. But, Bill has done the show in so many different capacities for such a long time, and then Jared got to do it for 3 years, and I was only doing it 6 to 8 months, and I was like, I can't believe it's gonna end. And they were lucky they let me do some gigs on the road and around the country after that, and even
you did it in the West End as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the thing about how it's a real family environment and how you bond very quickly and how there's an understanding, it translates to the audience as well, because some of the most unapologetically enthusiastic audiences I've ever had in my life have been for Forbidden Broadway, not just in New York, but also in the West End. And when I went into, much the same way that I went into Forbidden Broadway in New York, everybody knew each other and had worked together for years. And then up comes New Girl. It was the exact same thing with me doing Forbidden in London. The team that did it in the West End had just done it for months at the Meunier Chocolate Factory. And a couple years prior, all but one of those people had done it previously at the Meunier. Again, this is they were such a hit, they brought it back. So they were a well-oiled machine. And once again, in comes new person. I had done the show at least. So I was like, I knew I could learn it. And boy, did I have to learn it in a day. And then they said, can you learn these numbers to close the last 3 performances at the Matinee Chocolate Factory before we re-rehearsed the show and changed numbers around for the West End? And I was like, sure, no problem. This was while I had the flu, while I was dealing with a stalker and doing the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Just saying. And I went, yes, I can. And that wasn't just being overly optimistic. That was, I could do this. You give me a script, something to learn from. I can do this. And then, interesting. Gosh, I could babble about this forever. But I was welcomed in with that family love. There was no weirdness about it whatsoever. It was, you know what you're doing. Welcome. We all had this love of this crazy, beautiful thing called Forbidden Broadway. And so we gelled and worked together very, very quickly, even though I was new. And so much so that, you know how you said you have to, with that list of the running order, well, if so-and-so does a good impression of this, then we're going to switch those around. Huge West End icon, Anna Jane Casey, had done the Idina Menzel number, the On My Phone, like everything that I had done in New York or was known for doing an impression for. And she had to completely switch tracks when I joined that show. And that only happened into the first couple of rehearsal days into the West End Theater. And then I found myself, in fact, I remember at the last minute, like, we can't take everything away from her. She can't learn everything new. And I was like, no problem. Give me something. And for me, and Jared will appreciate this, and then I'll be quiet, all the numbers that we like never would have got to do necessarily, like, again, Forbidden Broadway Volume 3 is like Miss Saigon. It was running back in the West End. And then I got to do the Miss Saigon number that I had listened to for years. I finally didn't have to do, although I love it, on my phone, I got to do Madame Thénardier. Like, when would I ever get to do that? So I even then, we're like, no, just, it's easier. No, you give her on my phone. I'll put on the wig. And there's me and Ben Lewis, you know, star of Phantom and Company with Patti LuPone, doing Master and Up and Empty House. Like, it was hysterical. That's me.
I love it.
And I never would have got to do that. And every single time they said, would you mind? I just said, yes. And everybody in the cast does that. So it translates not just in New York, Forbidden Broadway, anywhere. I think you form that sort of family where you all help each other and you just make it happen.
Well, the thing is, in the course of a night, you can get to play 8 different classic roles that you've always dreamed about playing. And you don't have to do it for a long time, you know? And so that's you know, it sounds like a cult in a good way. There are 2 kinds of people in the theater: those who have done Forbidden Broadway and those who. And I'm in the other camp, and I look out, and my nose is pressed against the window, and I'm in awe of all of your skills. And I'm just so glad that you guys could join us today. I want to get back to this list a little bit before we have to break for a mission.
I'm giving my dog his freedom. Hold on. Here we go.
I look at the list of celebrities. See, what always strikes me, and I was looking at the pictures that Bill sent, is that I can think of no other show where celebrities would come to see you, and half the time they just saw you imitate them. And that must be, a thrill, but also pretty terrifying. You must have gotten a full range of comments from these people, or non-comments, or shade.
There are so many stories. I can tell you the Marin Maisie one. God bless her. Loved her to death. She came to the show and she told me, she said, you know, I sat there and I said, this is so exciting. I'm going to finally see the ragtime number. And she was all excited. And she goes, and then the first notes started to play on the piano. Dun, 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 dun. She goes, and I froze. She said, oh my God, what are they going to do to me? What are they going to do to me? She was all freaking out. And then she said, and then you guys were really nice to me. And that was one of our great numbers, honestly. Ragtime
was the best ever.
It was wonderful. That was one story. Chita Rivera kissed each of our faces and said, you know, all these years I've wondered what was going on. And she said, so that's what they've been doing to me all these years. I loved it. That's what she said.
Aww.
It was so great because we ran for so long. And I would, you know, I'd say Gerard didn't, when I started, I was like, hasn't Stephen Sondheim come? And he's like, oh yeah, he loves the show. I was like, well, when is he coming? This is a new edition. He was like, I don't know. I'm too nervous to invite him. And I was like, well, do you want me to? Like, how do we get him here? I have his address. So I wrote him and I left my email on it. And Sondheim emails me back and was like, my current spate of chores is too busy, but I will come in the next few weeks. And I was like, okay. And I told John and Gerard, and that was for maybe the company spoof. And he came, and of course, Raul Esparza came. And James Donegan, and I were doing that number. And I think James did it the night that Raul came. And like, oh my God, that one was rough. And Raul was
that's a rough number, yeah.
It was like a personal attack on him in a loving way. But that one was amazing. But Sondheim came 3 times, and then I got to play Sondheim. Sondheim.
That's the one that I'll say for me. I was new to the show, and if you had asked me, who's the one person you'd like to come see Forbidden Broadway, for me, it was Stephen Sondheim. And Stephen came. Gerard wrote this beautiful love letter to him. It was this Sondheim instead of Sunday, and it was just basically about how he's the best thing, and Broadway is suffering without more Sondheim musicals, and putting up his revivals is the best stuff there is. And he was there, and I did Bernadette Peters in front of Stephen Sondheim, and I just couldn't believe that it had happened. And he was so nice. He met with all of us after the show. And that's the moment that will never be topped for me.
Sondheim, like Carol Channing, was one of our biggest fans. And I remember him saying to Gerard, keep it mean, Gerard. It's always better when it's mean. That was he would stay after. I think that Sunday time, he stayed after for a few minutes, and he sent Gerard. And he's taking mental notes. The guy was only 80 at the time. But he was like, the one I had to memorize was hit by hit, putting up revival, show by show, Sunday in the Park is always smart, company and follies of salvation, even though it's risky doing art. Like, how do you remember that?
Insane. I don't know the original number anymore. I only know Gerard's version. But I had to do that for him. And Gerard, I was back there eavesdropping, and Steve was like, Gerard, so you got the first, second, and third rhyme, but you missed the fourth rhyme.
Like the internal rhyme. Yeah, he'd missed it.
4 rhyme. And he was taking notes. And I think Gerard has said this. He said, Gerard, you're the most talented lyricist in town and the laziest lyricist in town. That's what Stephen Sondheim told Gerard. And he said, like Bill said, the meaner it is, the better. And he said, the more astute you can do in saying it, instead of saying this is crap or you're stupid or this is junk, like don't ever say something is crap or whatever else. He's like, when you dissect it to the most minute detail, that's when Gerard's at his best. And of course, Gerard knows that. And
Gerard, do you remember that time after the show when we spoke to him? I thought it was like a good 20 minutes talking to Sondheim. And then we have the picture taken with him, which for me, of all the photos where we have pictures with celebrities, that's the prized photo.
Yeah. The first time he came when I was in the show, yeah. The first time he came to the show when I was in it, he brought Phyllis Newman, Tony winner, and one of his best friends, and Maria Friedman, West End star. And like the 3 of them in the audience, and I was like, and then Elaine Page came. I mean, come on, all the people that came to the show, it's just unreal.
Oh, incredible list. Yeah. Liza Minnelli never came to see the show. She didn't want to see it. She had heard that I hear the people around her kept her from coming, and no, you don't want to see that. I think the Liza number is hysterical. I don't know how much she's able to laugh at herself. I don't know.
Like Gina Kreismar, when Gina Goodman would do, I would sit in the wing because she did it on the piano, and it just went on and on. And it's one of those moments where I would have this with Christina, watching her doing Glitter and Be Gay, Glib. I was just like, you just forget that you're watching, you're just being entertained, and you forget who you're watching. And gosh, watching Gina do Liza was just so great.
And there might have been some drag queens dressed as Liza that came to the show. I mean,
yeah.
We're actually at a point where we usually take our teeny tiny intermission. And speaking of channeling other people, I've watched this clip that Christina did an amazing, lavish production of Funny Girl in Paris not long ago.
Fabulous review, too.
And we have a clip of the production. And yes, it's amazing what you're doing when you dig
dog
around
is
on the internet. So the dog approves. Yes.
Yes.
So,
Always a funny girl. Yeah. Thank you.
so we're gonna show this during the intermission when you may not even want to get up from your chair because you're gonna want to see the whole thing. But
I got to get up and get my dog something so he's quiet. But you enjoy
you
this.
probably have seen this already. So
I'll cry if I watch anyway. So
we'll be back in 2 minutes. But this is an amazing performance, and it is not somebody that gets up and does an imitation of Miss Streisand. She does her own Fanny Brice. It's remarkable. I wish New York and this country could see this performance.
Yes.
Maybe someday they will. So
we'll see with after COVID. We'll see.
well, after it's going to be like AD and AC and anyway. That meant to be something very profound. It went away. I had too much coffee. All right, so let's break for this intermission and enjoy this clip. And when we come back, we'll be talking a little bit more about you guys and your lives and what's coming up next, because there will be a future. We know it. So enjoy your intermission. It's not long, and you may not want to leave the screen because this is a wonderful clip. See you soon. Well, that was thrilling.
Wow, that was
it doesn't get much better than that. We all envy you to be able to do a production of a classic show like that, a role like that, with those production values. And I got so engrossed in talking to you guys that I forgot that right before intermission we usually do a quiz question.
Oh,
and the quiz question is related to that show.
Good.
So many of you musical theater historians and trivialists, or Jared has got to be one of them, may know that several very famous names were in the hopper for doing Funny Girl before Barbra Streisand did it. And the quiz question is, can you name about 4 stars who passed on the role of Fanny Brice in Funny Girl?
I can.
Well, I mean, we usually let the audience name a few, but
I'll be quiet. Or you let them go.
I'll tell you, we have one watcher every week who always gets it right. So maybe we should beat her to the jump right now. And Christina, you want to offer your
Well,
suggestion?
I'll tell you what. How about I just say one, and we'll see who else comes up. One of my all-time favorite vocalists, Edie Gourmet, was offered the role, and she was one of the first, I believe, if not the first. She might have been the second. But she said, yes, I'd love to do it, but only if my husband, Steve Lawrence, is cast as Nicky Arnstein. And I love Steve Lawrence, but they said he's not right for the part, which I don't actually believe he was. And so she passed.
That's interesting.
Which makes me very happy and very sad because I love what it did for Barbara Streisand, but I could only imagine what Edie would have been like in the part. Go ahead, Bill.
I heard a slightly different story. I heard that they were considering her, but they didn't go with her because her acting wasn't strong enough. That's what I heard.
Oh, it's funny. I didn't hear that story.
It was a little combination of both, but
they were pursuing Carol Burnett.
That's the other one, yeah.
And Mary Martin, right?
No, this needs to.
All right, Jared. Yes, you absolutely.
Mary Martin, Carol Burnett,
Don't say the fourth. Don't say the fourth. No one's going to get this right. We've just given them 3.
But Carol had said it needs to be a Jewish girl.
Jewish girl, right. Yeah. Very wisely. And I also, my own impression around that time is that Carol was starting to get into television so much because she had after that, she had a bout with another Julie Stein show, Fade Out, Fade In. And even though it was great for her and the reviews were great, she seemed to want to get out of there fairly quickly. So, it was there's probably a lot of ins and outs to these stories. But Jared is also right in that I think this is the most remarkable of all of them.
Mary Martin,
where before it even had the name Funny Girl. It was, I think, called My Man at that time.
Yeah.
And,
which still was never in the show.
And then, of course, the big one who was on board. And but then when Julie Stein started to compose the score because he had Streisand in mind, she said, I don't think I can sing this. And that was Anne Bancroft, who I think would be a brilliant acting choice and one of my favorites. But yeah,
that's it.
I think the die had been cast at that point for Miss. But what you did, Christina, you managed to make it your own. Even in that short clip, we can see that.
Thank you. And the clip, we all hate whatever they choose, right? For the clips, I didn't know they were filming that day. I wasn't ready, all that stuff. But everybody involved was determined to make this very much our production from the inside out. The original script, the original score. I know that the recent West End revival of it had a completely rewritten. I mean, it's almost a totally different show in my opinion. New songs, new script. We went back to the original, and so few people know the original because they only know the movie. And the movie script is wildly different and has so many different songs. So we knew that so many people will be looking at it with fresh eyes. It would do no good to try to copy anything. And certainly on my end, I was looking to separate myself as far from Barbra Streisand as possible, as hard as it is as a lifelong fan. And of course, grew up watching the movie and all that. But yeah, we found my own Fanny Brice. And the way I did that was really, I went back and looked at original Fanny Brice footage and listened to her. And obviously I'm physically nothing like her, but I have so much in common with her. It's funny. You look for the real stuff. You look for the grit. And again, I've been extraordinarily lucky. I've been so lucky. Most of the work that I've had that's been really profound, other than Forbidden Broadway here in the States, has been abroad. I've had these really great opportunities to be in the West End and all that. And it just blows my mind that I was able to be a part of this production, because I know that clip looks great. Everybody loved it. The New York Times loved it. Everybody loved this show. I've never been a part of anything that was so unanimously loved and by an audience that didn't even speak the language. It is unbelievable. There were subtitles, screens that had subtitles for everybody. And it was just the greatest experience of my life, genuinely. And the other thing is, and I know it sounds silly to tie it back all the way to Forbidden Broadway, but I have to, because Forbidden Broadway is what got me started doing impressions, put me out in the public on cast albums. People said, come here and perform, come here and perform. Then videos were put on YouTube. Then those YouTube videos went viral. Had I not had viral YouTube videos, had I not had viral YouTube videos internationally, then when they were looking to fill that place in Forbidden Broadway in London, they never would have reached out to an American to do that. It's because I had been performing in the UK. And the director and choreographer of Funny Girl, Olivier Award winner and Tony nominee Stephen Meir, had seen me in Forbidden Broadway in the West End and then came to see some of my shows. So he knew my work years. And I was the only American in that production. It was a big West End cast and creative team. And that's the only reason I even got an audition, is because he knew me from my previous work, and that previous work was Forbidden Broadway based. So I'm very grateful. Yeah.
Forbidden Broadway was always considered the best showcase for agents to see, because you showed so much of what you could do.
Mary Sugarman, who from Terry Rubin Casting, I love Mary. I love you, Mary. She came to the show. My manager was like, "Come see Jared. It's a new edition." And we did a Jersey Boys spoof. And so she got to see me this version of Jersey Boys. Hey, how you doing? This kind of like silly version of it. And so she was like, okay, but we were doing the Spamalot song that was essentially just like Spamalot, lyric for lyric on Broadway, because Spamalot just sort of stole that from Forbidden Broadway. And so she called me in for Spamalot, and I came in like 6 times for Spamalot because of that number. And she had me going in for the understudy for David Hyde Pierce and Hank Azaria, stand by, swing. And she kept scratching her head, and I kept going, "I'm not dead yet." And she's like, "No, I'm not dead yet." It's like got to be, British, not like a walk-up.
Yeah.
And so, like 6 auditions.
That's funny.
She saw me in Forbidden Broadway, and 6 auditions for Spamalot. No, 1 audition for Jersey Boys, because she had seen me audition for that. She was like, "He's good, but he's not right for this." And then finally, because she had seen me in Forbidden Broadway, she was like, "I'm going to bring him in for Jersey Boys." And I'm the least Italian guy on the planet. My dad, the Baptist preacher, and I'm like playing this Italian, Jersey guy. And I ended up playing every single role in the show but Frankie Valli, because she came to see me in Forbidden Broadway. So who knew? Who knew?
Well, to all you people out there who think that, you need a good showcase, you need to aspire to be in Forbidden Broadway. And you know what? Because the show changes so often, too. I think audiences are dying to go back and see what are they going to do next. It reminds me of those old reviews, upstairs at the downstairs, and these things that don't exist anymore. Gerard literally found a niche here that nobody else has been able to copy. And I was listening to a recording of a show the other day called Scrambled Feet, which was the precursor in a way to this. And they did some medleys, but I saw how it was very, very clever, very well done. I've worked with some of the people over the years who did it, and but it hasn't worn well, because satire, all that kind of thing, it has to be constantly updated, and that's what you guys have been. Even as the audience watches, some nights you're updating it, maybe not on purpose, and that's
fair.
Remarkable. That's
fair to say.
and I know that it's not that we haven't talked about this, but I do want to take this portion of the show. This Funny Girl production has led us into it, but I want to let the viewers know a little bit more about other aspects of your careers. Bill, in addition to being involved with this for so long, you've done some remarkably varied productions. You did a production of Barrymore at BRT. You are at FST, Florida Studio Theater, quite a bit. They love you down there. You just did Bright Star.
And I love
that show.
Yeah, well, actually, I'll tell you a little bit, is that I've been offered a show down there that would have been going on right now. So, but hopefully it will happen, after things.
Oh, I'd love to be down there with you sometime. That'd be a blast.
Well, it's a lovely place. I worked there doing No Way to Treat a Lady many years ago. And we came to visit you when you were doing one of those shows. Bill does a lot of these review type things, which I'm sure his skill is so honed from doing Forbidden Broadway. My favorite title was the one called Older Than Dirt.
That's right.
Which you aren't, but thank God.
No.
But
I
we
said
all will be one day if we stay in this business.
I said to the director as a joke, when did I qualify for a show called Older Than Dirt? And he said, well, Bill, I needed the juvenile's point of view. And we got along so beautifully after that.
Oh, so I guess you accepted minimum for that after that compliment. All right, I'll sign right on.
I did 3 reviews there, and 3 or 4, and I absolutely loved it. And then did Bright Star, full production, which was so close to my heart. I love that show so much. And let me say, David, that the two productions where the cast got along so beautifully, and I mean, a total love fest, no problems. It was Bright Star, and it's the one that you directed, South Pacific, that we did out in Connecticut.
Well, that was a very special thing for me as a director. It was the second time I directed South Pacific, but it was one of the most joyous journeys I've ever had. And I am happy to tell the public right now that we had several auditions for Billis, and I remembered an audition where you and I were going in for a production of South Pacific. I was reading for Emile and you were reading for Billis, and that stuck in my head. And I said to the producer, call this man and just offer him the job. And he was magnificent. And in addition to his talent as an actor and a singer in the production and being open to all of the things that we tried, and was that he was the unofficial company photographer. He was at every rehearsal. He was there with his camera taking artsy fartsy shots of us in action. That he literally was able to document our whole process in a very touching and very personal way. And so if you want to get 2 for 1, hire Bill Selby out there.
Listen, South Pacific was part of a bookend for me, probably the greatest experience I've had in theater, and that is this, that it showed my range in that I did South Pacific 1 year as Billis, the tough guy pushing the guys around, bossing them around. And 1 year later, I played Priscilla. I played the lead in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, Bernadette. And so I was able to play the really masculine dude and then do the very feminine woman. And both, if I may do this a little bit, reviews said very believable. And in both cases, I wasn't sure I could truly pull it off because I feel like I'm a middle of the ground guy, not the most masculine guy, not the most feminine guy, but I did do it. And both of them were major challenges for me and extremely rewarding. And that was very special, David, that you had me do Billis. I wasn't 100% sure I could pull it off. And I got so into it. I loved it.
Well, you were an entirely original take on it. It was so unique. And one of the things that worked so well about it is that you brought a tremendous vulnerability and sensitivity to the character. And that's that was a gift. And I am very envious that you got to do Priscilla because I never mind it. I lost the opportunity to do one too. So, but you understand, we don't like to be pigeonholed. And I had done so many lackages, and I thought, when I get called in to do something like that, I say, do they think that I can only play one thing? And it's the same thing with, ironically, I was directing a production of La Mancha while you were doing that. And I've done La Mancha 12 times. And sometimes I as much as I love it, I can resent it because I say, can't they think of me for anything else but that? But, and you guys in Forbidden Broadway get to play 18 different roles in a night. And that's a wonderful thing, it's, so.
But I think, sorry, I was going to say, but that's what makes it so rewarding, for a while. And I'm sure Jared feels this way a little bit just because of his experience going into Jersey Boys. Oh, he's done Forbidden Broadway, so he can cover everybody. But Jared is a fantastic leading actor in his own right. Yeah. And so, and also for me, it became all the other work I'd done, everything was sort of like forgotten about. It's like, she does the voices. She's the character actress. So you have to make some very hard decisions and sometimes say no to jobs that coulda, shoulda, woulda done something for me. I don't know. But I was like, you know what? If I do this, I may never get to be me again. I may never break out of the 4'11" character voice girl, so it takes, you have to take some chances. And so when you're given an opportunity, like Bill's talking about playing both of those parts, and like I was just recently given playing Fanny Bryce, it's so much more rewarding because you do sometimes go, okay, yeah, I still have this and people can still see that I'm not just one thing. And so, yeah, I mean, even as the director, you're like, I do more than La Mancha, so it's hard to it's hard to break out of it. But when you're given those opportunities, it puts a little more pressure on them, but it makes them so much more rewarding, I think.
Yeah. Well, I was just about to say, Jared, you have done a lot of remarkable and offbeat leading roles in your off time. Recently, you did a production of Parade not long ago. I mean, how many of us get an opportunity to play a role like that? So
amazing, and that was something my best friend said, "What's a show you dream you would get to do?" I said, "Well, I would love to do Parade, but nobody would ever cast me as a Jewish man in Atlanta." And he said, "Well, it's too big of a show." I said, "No, they did it in London, and it's really much smaller now." And my friend directed it, and we did it in downtown Marietta, and it was so important to bring that show back there. We did it on the square where everybody, lynched him, just literally 2 miles away. So that was an amazing role to get to play. I got to do 3 Jason Robert Brown musicals in a year. I got to do Parade, Song for New World, and Bridges of Madison County in a year. Wow. So after being in Jersey Boys for 8 years, my wife has been in Wicked for 13 years.
We haven't talked about Lindsay at all, but you guys, for me, you were the big Broadway babies who went from one show to the next. And I know it's not to bring up the era that we are in, but it's kind of the elephant in the room. And I know that you two have, with your beautiful daughter, have relocated to Florida temporarily. But you will be back, I'm sure. I can't imagine a couple that has theater so much ingrained in their DNA to give up on New York entirely. So
we saw the new revival of Company with Patti LuPone the Monday before Broadway shut down on Thursday. And, it was weird. We were like, let's wash our hands. Let's, nobody, we're not supposed to wear masks then, of course. But, I love Broadway so much. I could have seen Six, and I could have seen something else, Diana. And I was like, I missed 2 Broadway musicals. Like, with everything else going in the world, I hate that I missed that. I mean, 6 closed on opening night. But, we can't stay on here forever. I will die if I'm not in New York City. But we don't, like I was telling you, David, if I owned an apartment, owned my home, we would have stayed, obviously. But we were just bleeding thousands of dollars.
I know.
Math. By September, I was like, in September it's $18,000. In January it's $31,000, and we have to send our daughter to college. And I was like, we can't just sit and wait. So we are luckily filming things for an insurance company, and it's great that they need actors to help teach people how to Zoom, how to talk, and how to light. Isn't my lighting wonderful?
It is.
I have to say, this has been of all the shows we've done, this has been the 3 most interesting backgrounds that we have had. And I do appreciate.
I just want you to. I want Bill to pop up with a beach now because of his shirt. Like a beach.
I do have a feeling that Christina has. Well, you actually told me that you have that semi-permanently in your apartment. That background.
Oh, so yeah. I mean, I used to, back in the day when we would film randomly. I have a little dark, very classic reddish curtain, and we fold that up and put it in the closet and just put up some poles to hang it. But recently, when all this happened, I do post some videos on YouTube and all that. And I thought, you know what? I'm such a live performer, and I always have what we call techno fear. I get afraid of making these videos and all that. So dive into it. This is your time. So we got a green screen. We got a few more lights. And I've been doing some live stream concerts. I say concerts, but they're full shows with videos and interviews and clips, and it's become a whole thing. And so I said, well, we need something a little more glam. So we ordered these little curtains, and this is in front of our closet. And it's hanging here. And the reason we keep it up is because we're sort of like, I was doing them once a month and other stuff, and I've luckily been asked to do a few things that, not just for the concerts I've been doing. I call them concerts for a cause. I'm usually trying to raise money for various organizations. One time it was TDF, one time it was the HRC. So I've not been taking any money myself for these concerts, but I do get asked to do some things for events and corporate things. And so it stays up. And this is my ring light is right here.
Well, that's what we're all trying to do. and use the technology that we must learn now to get along, and hopefully incorporate that into our lives later. It's for auditions, and we're
Not going anywhere.
I mean,
technology.
Doing this, and because I was constantly looking at myself. I'm doing it now. I'm going, oh my God, your eyes are so big, your neck is so long. What, and why are you so pink? But
oh my God.
Anyway, but we're making friends with it. It's that you brought that up, that you're doing a lot of projects for no money. I'd like to remind our viewers that we are doing this show for no money. We want to keep the ghost light at the theater burning, and we're waiting in the green room. I say this every week, our virtual green room, because we're waiting just to go on stage again in whatever capacity that is. And I know a lot of our viewers have asked, what can we do to contribute? We don't ask for money here. We don't ask for donations, but I always say, there's a wonderful organization called the Actors Fund that you can donate, because a lot of our peers, and who knows what the future will bring. We needed to pay for health insurance, keep a roof over our heads, and we're going to be there when this pandemic is behind us, because we love theater, and so will all of you. And so. I know money is tight right now, but if you have a little bit to donate to the Actors Fund. That's going to help us all. So I this time has flown by, and I didn't even get to half of the anecdotes on.
Damn list.
Sorry.
We can never do this again, so don't ask us to.
Well, I made before you know it. Christina, I feel like we're old friends, even though this is my first day to know you. And you guys, I treasure our friendship. I'm so glad that you're alive and well and smiling and everything else right now. Please, Jared, give our best to Lindsay too. I after the fact, I said, well, there's another Broadway actor. We could have had a double right there, but we may tap you again before long. So anyway, I want to let everybody know, because we have a little playoff clip that is going. Stay with it to the end, because you'll see these three familiar faces, and you're going to hear Jared's voice. But I wanted to remind everybody who is going to be on next week's show. We're going to have three remarkable performers: Jonathan Hadley, Josh Lehman, and Haley Swindoll next week.
Yay.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know them. They're all and we got Carol Channing on this. This is there were a couple of weeks this last month where we didn't actually have somebody imitate Carol Channing. So I'm so glad that you brought the tradition back. I was gonna say, I think Jim Morgan did it. I don't know. The most unlikely people come on this show and imitate Carol Channing.
So there was a shocking lack of impressions today, considering.
Well, I wanted everybody to know that you guys, even though you're the cornerstone of Forbidden Broadway, that you have a lot more to offer than just having done Forbidden Broadway. But Forbidden Broadway is so much a part of what we theater lovers know over the years. And long may it wave, and long may it give you guys work and the rest of us a tremendous amount of enjoyment.
I enjoyed this so much. Thank you for having us on, Dave.
Oh,
yeah.
My pleasure. I can't
wonderful.
thank you enough. This was so much fun. So we're going to run this last clip. You're going to hear Jared and see some more scenes from Forbidden Broadway of the past.
All right.
Enjoy.
I'm a special kind of Broadway star for slow people. I'm David Hyde Pierce from TV. They know my face from Frasier as that stuck-up chap. I step on the stage, they stand up and clap. I am droller than your dentist, but to Slow people, I'm flashy as a charismatic star. And to the uninformed straight, if you're famous, you're great. And I rate right up there so far. You would think I was Olivier to slow people. Just ask the next tourist you see. If I do Shaw or Shakespeare, the public attends. They think I'm the guy from Seinfeld or Friends. Mediocrity is Mecca to a slow person. They wanna see a Tony-winning star, and they'll grovel and fawn if you stand there and yawn and go on how brilliant you are. It's an honor to be so beloved by slow people. The general public feeds a Broadway show. It goes over their head, but without them we're dead. So instead, the show must be slow.
No subtext for slow people.